government, but will that actually happen? Here to discuss, Washington Democrat Congressman and ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, Adam Smith. Great to have you on. Welcome to Sunday Report. We're still at this stalemate. Republicans, they're calling this the Schumer shutdown. And there actually might be some truth to that. And here's why. Democrat whip Catherine Clark said maybe the quiet part out loud. She said that families are going to suffer because of the shutdown, but it's one of the few times that Democrats have leverage. So are Democrats holding the American people hostage for political posturing? Did she say the quiet part out loud?
No, it really is. And it's not the quiet part. I mean, we've been talking about this from the very start. This is about the budget. You know, what the Republicans want is they want us to vote to continue Trump's budget. And that budget is devastating for health care. And very specifically, we've been 100% clear on this from the very start. The Affordable Care Act subsidies that are going away are going to drive up the cost of health care for millions of people and drive millions of people off of health insurance. And we want the Republicans to talk to us and negotiate with us about that, number one. Number two, the problem with Donald Trump's sort of clean CR thing is throughout his presidency for 9 months, he has not followed the appropriations that Congress has passed. He has very specifically and very publicly said he is going to cut spending for Democratic priorities in Democratic states, and he has done that.
Right.
He has not spent the money the way Congress is supposed to do. So what you're asking us to do, this is not a clean CR. This is a continuation of Trump's budget that is devastating to health care and that gives him the power to basically stick it to Democratic states on undemocratic priorities.
But Republicans argue that this is relitigating the big, beautiful bill, the $1.5 trillion. Is it relitigating the big, beautiful bill that was passed?
Well, no. Well, yes, to a certain extent it is. But the difference is when they passed the budget bill, they didn't need Democratic votes for it. They jammed it through on a purely partisan voting. And good for them. You know, the reconciliation process is part of how this process works. They used that to maximum advantage. But now, and by the way, they have an option to continue to do that. They could get rid of the filibuster on this in the Senate. And if you want to pass a Republican-only budget, which is what they want to do, then great, figure out how to do it with Republican-only votes. But Democrats believe that this is harmful to the American people, in the country. And now they're asking us to vote for it because they need our votes in this scenario. That's what Catherine Clark was talking about. It's not a quiet part out loud. It's very well understood that in this situation, Republicans need Democratic votes. And instead of doing what you're supposed to do, and this is the way the filibuster works, by the way, you have the filibuster so the Republicans and Democrats have to negotiate with each other.
All right.
And the Republicans have said no.
Okay, but President Trump has said this, Congressman. He said that he's willing to meet with Democrats and negotiate something that is fair for both sides after they pass the CR. Well, why not do that? Open the government, get the American people paid that are essential workers, and move on.
Let's be clear on what we're saying here. First of all, the House of Representatives has been shut down since September 19th. That's never happened before. We've had shutdowns before. We are always in session during shutdowns because that is the most important time to actually be negotiating. That didn't happen this time. They've shut down the House. They are refusing to negotiate with Democrats. And you say, well, why don't we just vote for their budget and then negotiate? I mean, that's not a smart way to negotiate. Once they have the only leverage that we have, which is our votes, we give them their votes, and then what?
Okay, but
they do what they've done before. Why won't they negotiate now?
We're at this stalemate here, and I want to ask if you think the SNAP benefits, when they dry up November 1st, is that going to be 40 million people they're fed on this?
Yeah, let me be clear. It is terrible to have the government shut down. There is no argument whatsoever that any Democrat is making that this isn't a huge problem. Okay. Our argument is that Trump and the Republicans flat won't negotiate on it. They expect us to simply vote for the Republican budget, which has the devastating impact on health care. It has a devastating impact on food programs. SNAP benefits have been cut. It does not reflect the priorities that we think are most important for the American people. And the Republicans are refusing to negotiate and saying, no, you have to vote for our budget because we need your votes.
Let's see what happens.
It's devastating.
Let's see what happens
shutdown
next week. Maybe this will end next week. Clearly, President Trump thinks this.
I hope so. It needs to.
It needs to end. We can both agree on that. Let's switch gears, though. I want to ask you here, because we are watching early voting underway here in New York City. This mayoral race, you've got House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries finally coming out. He's endorsing the Democrat candidate here, Zohran Mamdani. Your reaction to Jeffries throwing his support behind Mamdani? Is the Democrat Party now going to be in line with this socialist policy?
Yeah, well, the first thing that I want people to keep in mind, and I know in the conservative world, the only election that's happening in America is the mayorship of New York City. And that's not actually the most important election. Democrats win in New York. That's not a problem. The more interesting elections are in New Jersey and Virginia, where we have two, I think, centrist, moderate, very capable candidates in Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill running, and I think that'd be interesting to see. Look, we have a big coalition. And I think it's very interesting what Mamdani has done since the primary. What he has said and what he has done to this point in his career, deeply troubling to me. I don't believe in sort of the left-wing socialist stuff that he has been talking about. But he has, since then, said that, no, he's going to work with people, he's going to change. I don't know, all right? But I think we need to put the pressure on him to do that. And I think certainly of the candidates running, there's not a lot to choose from there. So I don't have a problem with Jeffries' endorsement. I think the key is Mamdani's got to figure out that sort of academic socialist rhetoric runs smack into reality when you actually have to govern the city. Is he going to learn from that? Is he going to be a different person once he gets elected? He said that he's going to be. I have my doubts.
Right.
But we got to put pressure on him. A
lot of New Yorkers don't think that the policies that he's suggesting or that he wants to implement if he's elected will actually work here in a city like New York, the financial capital. I mean, that's why it's important. And this is, New York kind of is the tipping point for a lot of how other races go.
And let me be clear on that. The policies that are most troubling is the Mamdani idea that we're just going to give free stuff to everybody. I mean, it's the great cliche about socialism. The problem with socialism is sooner or later you
Margaret Thatcher, that's what she said. Yeah, once the money dries up, right?
Right. So is he going to learn on that? And second, we do have to hold people personally responsible. His past comments about law enforcement and the need to enforce the law and have rules are very troubling. Now, he has changed those recently. And, hopefully once he actually has to run something, he will recognize that the rhetoric in an academic classroom is very different than actually having to run a city the size of New York.
We shall see. Early voting underway now. We'll see how things go once the polls open here very shortly. Congressman Adam Smith, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
Likewise, thank you.
The current government shutdown, now its second longest in our nation's history, only behind the 35